go. Okay, just going live on YouTube. Cool. Get out of here. There we go. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 11th of February. We're going to be doing something a bit different today. I'm going to be running through use cases of ClawdBot or OpenClaw. So there's not much news in the world of artificial intelligence. We had a resignation from Anthropic with a very flowery resignation letter, complete with footnotes and a poem. But it's not that interesting. It's kind of gossip, but not actually anything that moves the needle. So what I'm going to do instead today is I'm going to be looking again at ClawdBot. ClawdBot came out 2 or 3 weeks ago and became a very big deal very, very quickly. But I know there's a lot of people out there who are still wondering, should I use it? What can I use it for? What is different about ClawdBot compared to other applications of artificial intelligence before? So I know there's still a lot of confusion out there and also a lot of FOMO, a lot of fear of missing out. So what I want to do today, a little bit different. I'm not going to run through the installation steps. I've covered that before and I'll probably do it again to show you some more options. What I'm going to do instead is go through what you can use ClawdBot OpenClaw for so that you can kind of spark your imagination and work out what you can use it for in your daily life. I think we're at this weird place right now where it's a bit like when we started using AI for the first time, or using things like ChatGPT, where we are questioning what exactly can we do with AI. And you'll probably meet people who ask you this on the day-to-day basis. What can I do with ChatGPT? Or they'll say, oh, can I use ChatGPT to do XYZ? And the answer to that is usually, yeah. Or give it a shot and see how it goes. Or ask AI if you can do this. And generally the artificial intelligence can, and if it cannot, 6 months, 12 months from now, it probably will be able to. So a lot of people had that experience with ChatGPT a couple of years ago. Some people are still going through that today. I know that a lot of more kind of advanced users of AI are having that right now with ClawdBot. Should I be using it? What can I use it for? What can it do? What can't it do? Am I falling behind if I'm not using this, etc., etc.? So I just wanted to go through some use cases, and you can use that to trigger thoughts and your imagination about whether this is something you want to include in your daily life. So this is not an installation guide. I've covered that elsewhere and I will do some more resources on that, but instead this is just, hey, this is what it is and what you can use it for. So hopefully we can get to a point where you're like, okay, cool, I know what I can use it for, or not. That's absolutely fine too. I met my mum last week on Friday, and one of the first things she said is, oh, how do I set up ClawdBot? And I said to her, nope, don't do that. Just it's totally fine not to use ClawdBot, and that is a very valid option as well. So ClawdBot has been absolutely rocketing in terms of its popularity. This is a graph here which I think is pretty amazing. These are the star ratings on GitHub. So people can star a repo, they can star a project saying, hey, I'm interested in this, I like this. You can see various famous projects like React, the React framework, JS Vue, or Vue.js, sorry. We have AutoGPT, I totally forgot about that. And that was one of the early kind of agentic AIs we had a couple of years ago. That would have been, oh god, they started back in 2014. Okay. TensorFlow is a machine learning tool, and that is, yep, still going strong. Linux, might have heard of that, quite a big open source project. Now this line here on the right hand side, which looks like a separate y-axis, it looks like a secondary axis. It is not. That is OpenClaw, and you can see the OpenClaw star ratings have just shot through the roof. Recently overtook Vercel, I think, and it's closing in on some other very large projects. Technically, OpenClaw will be able to catch up and beat the number of stars on Linux probably within the year, which is kind of mad because Linux is the the open source project. So very, very impressive. And if you go over onto the OpenClaw GitHub repository, you can see what they're at now. They're at 185,000 stars, which is absolutely mad. So it's taken off. People are spending a lot of time and effort working out how to use this, you might be thinking, oh, am I falling behind? Yesterday, I think it was, or 2 days ago, there were several meetups as well. There was one in Vienna. There was one in San Francisco. I think there was another one in Austria that Kitse was at as well. So people are actually getting together to talk about what they can use OpenClaw for, what kind of projects they're working on, and to kind of move forward with the project. So very, very exciting what's going on. What I want to do though is kind of bring some of that information back to you guys here. So maybe you didn't make it to San Francisco, you didn't make it to Vienna, absolutely fine. We're going to talk about some of the things that are being done. I'm going to start pulling them together. We're going to use things like this showcase, which is on the OpenClaw website, where he has a bunch of different uses that are being used. And I'm going to use various tweets where people have started to list out really cool uses. And we're just going to go through them and try to find things that might be useful for your everyday life, because it's hard to envision what we can do with OpenClaw or ClawdBot until we start to see use cases and then start to play around with it ourselves. So we're going to shortcut the first of those at least. So where are we? This is a Notebook LM presentation, which is quickly becoming my favorite AI tool because I can just make these presentations so quickly. So very quickly on what ClawdBot is and why it's different to using ChatGPT or even Claude Code with some cron jobs is the fact that ClawdBot is always on. So it's going to be persistent. It's 24/7. It is sitting there completing tasks for you. So that's very different to a reactive AI like ChatGPT, where we as a human user need to go to the AI, give it some requests, it will go off and do them and then bring them back to us, and then we're going to go back and forward. You don't need to do that with ClawdBot. Instead, you can set it to autonomously work on things. That is really cool if you have a task that is well defined and you just want it to be done on a daily basis. So for me, for example, I use it to go and grab all of the AI news of the day and bring it back to me, and I've given it a set of examples. I've given it delimitation of what I want against what I don't want, and it goes off, does that research for me, brings it to me every single morning. Could I have done this using a normal, built an application for it and use cron jobs? Yes, 100%. And a lot of the things we'll be talking about today, you could probably do without ClawdBot. Is it easier doing them with ClawdBot? Yes. Yes, it is, because ClawdBot will work out the details for you. That said, there are security issues connected to ClawdBot and to OpenClaw. We're not going to discuss them today. That is its whole own presentation. But do keep them in mind. So that is the main shift, is that it is proactive. It will go off, it will work out how to do tasks. It will act as, if you set it up this way, as an employee. So it's going to be very different from you having to micromanage your AI. That's what we basically do at the moment. Instead, you're going to be setting up an employee or multiple employees, and they're going to go off and do your bidding proactively and bring you their results as if you were working with a human. I think a really useful paradigm for this is an article actually, it was just last month. So Ethan Mollick was talking about how one of the superpowers moving forward into 2026 is your ability to manage. So it's management. If you are a good manager of people, if you can run teams, if you can lead teams, if you can delegate tasks and give very precise instructions about how they can be done, you're going to do very well with the new wave of artificial intelligence, which is agents and agent swarms, because you're able to delegate what exact tasks you want to get done, and then leave your AIs to go and do them, check on their work, tweak the processes, rewrite standard operating procedures, etc., etc. That is a very powerful skill. Interestingly, it's a skill that a lot of technical people don't necessarily have, because a lot of technical people have been one individual themselves working with a computer. They have not necessarily managed teams. They have not necessarily managed other human beings. So this is a skill that if you have from a non-technical background is going to be really useful when you work with agents moving forward, because you are in a better position to be able to communicate what it is you need to do, to be able to structure projects, to be able to think systematically. These are going to be really, really, really powerful tasks. I'll put this article, because I don't want to get knocked off track, but I'll put this article in the newsletter tomorrow as well, talking about why management is now what is important. Okay, let's hop in to the actual meat of this. We're going to group it into a couple of pillars, into a couple of different areas where we can use OpenClaw. Again, this is not exhaustive, in the same way that if the question, what can I do with ChatGPT, is kind of a meaningless question, because you can do so much with it. Any human task pretty much that you could do, you could work out a way to do it with ChatGPT. So we need to start with, what do we need for our personal and professional lives? We start there. Instead of what can we do with this tool, it's what can it do for me? So first, and probably the most obvious, is an executive assistant. Being able to go through the tasks in your life that are a bit mundane, a bit boring, things that if you were to hire a person, a human being, an executive assistant or a virtual assistant for you, what would you offload to them? So it's probably going to be quite boring things like your invoices, receipts, bookkeeping, purchasing. So autonomously ordering food or supplies based on inventory and wake up times. Smart home, you can control. I've seen people who have connected it to their smart home so they can like text on WhatsApp and say, oh, did I leave my front door open, for example. Again, could you do that through the home security application? Yes, but once we start to connect it to other things, we can do some very clever things here. Dispute resolution, the Karen skill, drafting and sending formal complaints to customer service APIs. So if you want to complain about something, if you want your ClawdBot to be a Karen, you can 100% do that. I've been posting a lot about the very wasteful government website, the £4.1 million government website that I think is trash, that teaches AI skills. I could use my ClawdBot to draft up freedom of information requests. I could use it to draft up letters to MPs. I could use it as a Karen, basically, to go out and do my bidding in that way. Receipt logging, this is such a good one. Being able to take a photo, it sends it over to whatever your receipt bank is. So again, for lots of these things, you're probably thinking, well, I've already got a receipt application, or I've got a smartphone app already. The big thing here is that we're able to start tying it all together. And that opens up other workflows because everything is flowing through one central point, through an orchestrator, through a gateway, which is ClawdBot. It allows you to come up with more complicated workflows. It allows you to come up with more sophisticated uses of these technologies. So right now, you might have 20, 30, 50, 100 apps on your telephone, all doing various things, all linking to different data sources. ClawdBot is allowing us to bring these things together. And so the question is, well, what does that allow us to do? That's the question we need to be answering. So I've seen a lot of people who are just using ClawdBot to deliver a weather report to them every morning. Hilariously, it seems to be the example everyone's giving. That's not a very good use of ClawdBot because that's something we can already do quite easily. Hell, you can just open the weather app. By itself, as an isolated task, that's not very helpful. But if you can deliver a weather report which then updates your schedule based on when you should be taking your run, for example, and then it shifts around your schedule, so it moves your work blocks and things out of the way so that you can secure your run, which then connects into your personal productivity system and your weight loss and nutrition systems, etc. That's when we can start to be smart about these things. We can start to create complex workflows, we can let ClawdBot create complex workflows for us. So the isolated weather report itself triggers a whole bunch of other things. So that's when it gets clever, but it requires us to think about this in a clever way. So executive assistant is probably the first one. And let's see if there's any in home and hardware, community projects, knowledge and memory. I'm just seeing if there's any in the workflows here. Padel court booking. Paddle or Padel? Padel. I've never known how to say it. That's probably a good thing. Accounting intake, collects PDFs from emails, preps documents for tax consultant, monthly accounting on autopilot. See, that sounds great. Doesn't sound great for my accountant, but it sounds great for my business. Job search agent. So I had somebody contact me about this the other day because I was talking about ClawdBot and how it could be used in job search, and they wanted my help building that. I'm sure there'd be other people who'd be extremely interested in this. So if you are looking for a job right now, this could be something that you can build. If it works for you, it will work for other people. Boom, you've got a business. Todoist. So I'm seeing a lot of skills and a lot of connections with to-do apps. However, I've also seen a lot of people building their own to-do apps because it's one of the kind of easiest pet projects that you can do. Often it's people's first app is creating a to-do list, but you can create one inside OpenClaw which connects to all of your other systems as well. So again, it's the connectivity between all of these systems that is important, not the specific skills, not the specific tasks we can do, but the whole, the holistic. So this is pillar one, the executive assistant. Again, Think about this as if you were hiring a virtual assistant. Think about it as if you were hiring an executive assistant. If you were doing that, you will sit down and you will work out, what are the tasks I don't want to do on a daily basis? What are the tasks that take away my time that can be automated by giving it over to ClawdBot? You start there. So you don't just go through this list and think, oh, that's cool, I could do that. I could build a trading dashboard, or I could create a Todoist skill. That's using other people's ideas, but we're not going to copy them slavishly. We're going to use them as inspiration. That's it. You have to think about what's going to be useful for you. So let's hop over to pillar 2, research. This is what I use it for. So ClawdBot can act like an agentic researcher. To be fair, a lot of the other models can do this now, and I think OpenAI just released a new research module too. Let's put it up. Not Prism, Deep Research. Nope, no, Deep Research has been around for ages. OpenAI just released something new like this, so you can get, again, as with a lot of things with ClawdBot, you can get the individual parts. Here we go. Deep Research in ChatGPT is powered by 5.2. What's that all it is? So now you can connect apps to ChatGPT in search specific sites. That's cool. Track real-time progress and interrupt. View full screen reports. So ChatGPT can do research. Claude can do research. Absolutely. But what you can do with something like ClawdBot is you can have that research coming to you on a regular basis. You can have that research being updated based on past research. Again, it's not about you going personally to the deep research module and setting something up, but a ClawdBot that can work out when it needs to go and do more deep research. It can use the previous tasks it's done. It can use information from the rest of your ecosystem, pull it all into one place, and then use that for the research. So it's about that connectivity, and it's about that proactive ability for it to go off and do the research when it thinks it is necessary. So you could set it up. So just trying to think of an example. Right now, I'm helping to put together a conference. I am the host of the conference, so I'm interviewing people. One thing that I could do is, as soon as the interview is confirmed and we have a time for the interview, that could trigger from my calendar into my ClawdBot to tell the ClawdBot to go and get as much information as it can about the person I'm going to be interviewing. And I would give it some boundaries. I'd say this is for a conference. A conference is teaching people how to start side hustles of artificial intelligence. I want to focus on this. It's going to be a 45-minute interview, etc., etc. I could give it those boundaries, but it would immediately, the moment that interview time is confirmed, it would immediately go off and begin that research. So again, think of it as a staff member, somebody who's going to proactively start that work for you. You give them the training, you give them the resources needed, you give them briefs about what it is you expect from them. But apart from that, they will just go off and do the work as and when it is needed. This is the flip that is required, is from thinking of it as an AI that we go to when we have a specific research task to, oh no, this is a researcher that will proactively do research for me if and when it is needed. That is the shift here, and that's kind of hard to grasp until you start to use it. Very, very, very cool. So for me, I use it for research for AI news. So it's off getting the AI news every single day. What I need to do, and I haven't done yet, is start to get it to take my daily lives and to take the newsletters that I prepare from them and create things like a weekly summary. And then it can create scripts from that, which I can use for short form videos, I can use for another YouTube video, etc., etc., as if I had a content researcher, an SEO researcher working for me. Again, you need to think of it as, what is the job? Who is this person that I'm hiring? I think this was a useful tweet. Where was it? I saw a good one. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find it. Not this one. Oh no, it was on here. Let me just find it. It's a guy who had this realization of what this means, which was very cool. And now it's gone. It has disappeared. Thanks, X. Here we go. Ryan Carson. So who is Ryan? I just thought this was well written. So he's a dad, a dev, a CEO, and a 3-time founder. And he has 170,000 followers. What has he founded? I'm sorry, Ryan, I should probably know this. So he created Dropsend, Carsonified, and Treehouse. Okay, I know Treehouse. I definitely know Treehouse. Very cool. Treehouse is great. It's a learning platform. So Ryan Carson says, holy shit, I have truly seen the light with OpenClaw. This is not a toy or a shiny object. This is how you will hire engineers in the future. I would push back on this and say this is how we're going to hire a lot of people. So we've just talked about research. This is how we're going to hire a researcher. This is how we're going to hire a copywriter and a content producer and various other roles. So, but he's talking about engineers here specifically because that's his background. So he says, this is how you're going to hire engineers in the future. I've set it up on my iMac next to me, which has its own GitHub account, Vercel account, and it's shipping real PRs for me. It just went back and forth through Greptile until a PR was perfect. So he's given it its own GitHub account and Vercel, which is it's like a place where you deploy websites or apps. Accounts, he's set it up, got its own email address, I imagine its own accounts, so it is not connected to any of his own accounts, so it is acting as a person in the same way that if I hired somebody onto my team, I would get them set up with an email address, I'd get them set up with different accounts under our team plans, etc. Exactly the same, but it is a computer. Yeah, I know you can already do all of this with AMP, Claude Code, etc. True. You can do a lot of this stuff using the existing tools off the shelf. And again, I was joking about people using this to create a weather report. That's what we're talking about here. There's a lot of things that you can do without Claude Code, and you don't necessarily have to use Claude Code for, but people are still using not Claude Code. God, this is why they changed the name, OpenClaw, for this reason. But he goes on to say, but having something that is actually an agent versus something you invoke truly changes the calculus. So again, this is the big thing. It is the shift from me going to the AI to me not having to go to the AI. I'm no longer required to invoke it. I'm no longer required to set it on a task. Instead, it will proactively get on with it in its own time. Really, really cool and hard to underestimate. I can see setting up 10 of these, probably switch to the cloud, but there's something magical about being able to pair a program with an agent next to me where I can see their screen and say stuff like, you're using the wrong Chrome profile I can see in the window, is amazing. So this is talking about having not just one agent, but having multiple agents. You can actually have multiple agents going through one system, so you don't need to have 10 Mac Minis for 10 agents. In fact, you can have multiple on one Mac Mini. There were people like Alex Finn. I think Alex Finn just bought the Mac Studio Pro or whatever it is, the beast version, so he can run hundreds of agents all at the same time. I hate to sound hypey, but geez, once you take the time to properly set this up and give it carefully controlled powers and access, it's freaking amazing. Also, there's a much deeper thread I want to pull on here about renting your agent versus owning. Big shift. So again, this is a guy who has founded Treehouse. Not Treehouse. Is it called Treehouse? I've used it. Yeah, it is Treehouse. Which had 100 employees and educated over 1 million students, and it got acquired in 2021. So this is a guy who's built companies, and he codes and he understands it. So there are very smart people who are starting to work this out and realize like, oh, this is new. Whether or not it is OpenClaw that is going to carry us into this next phase, I'm not certain about. I think it's very exciting what's happening. I think it's amazing that the community is supporting it, and we saw things like the OpenClaw adoption and the stars here. That's really cool. It might be that the Frontier Labs come in and release better versions of CoWork, for example, and better versions of Codex, which can allow us to do all of these things. Probably going to be that way, with the big companies basically seeing this and saying, oh, we can do that, but we can do it better. But if you kind of want to get in early, if you want to start wrapping your head around how to do this stuff, start playing around with OpenClaw. I'm going to get the name wrong so many times. I've done other guides on how to install it. I'm not going to cover it today because we could spend an hour doing just that. It's not as hard as you think, but if you feel technically overwhelmed by it, I would say sit it out for now. It will get easier. Okay, Next pillar is going to be marketing and ops. This is one that I'm particularly excited about, which I haven't set up with my OpenClaw yet, and I really need to. Basically, being able to have marketing reps. So the one thing that I want to start doing more of, and this is my own personal choice, is I want to do more PR. I've talked to a couple of PR agencies, and what they do seems very expensive for not a huge amount of work. Of course, they have contacts, but a lot of the work seems to be sending out emails or going on Harrow, help a reporter out to find things that their clients could talk on. So I'm going to see if I can build a ClawdBot integration that would just do that. It won't be able to do it to the same degree, but I also won't have to give them £3,000 a month. So that's fine. So for PR, for example, I'm going to start doing outreach via ClawdBot, where a ClawdBot would go out and research targets. It would look at who else is talking in the media, for example. It would look at who else is getting sponsorship, and then it would go back and contact those organizations. It would contact those companies who are paying for sponsorship, etc., and then do some research, use LinkedIn, and then I can connect it, so it can connect via my LinkedIn account to the ad rep or to whoever is responsible for the PR. So I'm mixing up ads and PR here. I shouldn't be. I'll make two agents for those things. And then it will be able to do outreach, start a conversation, and then at a certain point, and I will define this, it will pass the conversation to me. So that's something I have on my long list of to-dos. But for marketing, it's basically endless. We're already using AI for an awful lot of marketing, for sales copy, for adverts. Right now, I'm setting up a meta campaign. I have 90 different video combinations. It took a lot of work, but I've got 90 video combinations of me. I recorded them, we changed the hooks, we did all this with artificial intelligence to help us plan it. I'm now going to set up all of my headline, description, subheadline, and landing pages, again, using artificial intelligence so we can hyper segment. Doing this before would have required a big team or a huge amount of time. With AI now, we've done it in a week or so, and that's while juggling a lot of other projects. But that's the kind of thing that I could potentially pass over to ClawdBot. I could give it access to the AdWords MCP. I could give it, I think there's a meta ads MCP. I need to look into that, or some kind of skill. I could give it access to that so it can monitor my campaign, see what's doing well, use that to come up and refresh copy, check my A/B tests, etc., and then give me a weekly report saying, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not working. I think you should write some more headlines, or you should shoot some more videos. Do you want me to get on with that for you? Again, it becomes an employee. You have to think of it as a dedicated employee who's doing certain tasks for you, as if you're writing a job description for them, and then you're setting them up to do that work. Still, at the moment, I get them to report back to me so I can give feedback, so that I can help tune their instructions, and until I'm happy with the results. I can imagine a future where that is increasingly not required, and eventually I can just remove myself from it. Not there yet, but we're moving in that direction, and quite fast as well. Content, of course, you can do a lot of content with artificial intelligence. So for example, what I do with this live, I hop on the live, I talk for an hour or so. That becomes the basis of a whole bunch of other content. So for example, I did a live about what is OpenClaw, and then because I talked for an hour, that gives us lots of raw material. We can feed that into an artificial intelligence to write up into a newsletter, because it's not working from scratch. If you just said to an AI, create a guide about OpenClaw, it would be very generic, it'd be a bit crap. But because it's based on my words, it's based on my discussion, my opinions and thoughts, we create something a bit more useful. And then that all got turned into this page on this website, which has images generated by artificial intelligence. It has, this is all from AI. And this becomes a guide about OpenClaw, which lives on my website, which has been created by AI, but off the back of this live stream. So again, this is something I can now turn over to OpenClaw to take it off my plate. Like even this slide deck that's included here, that is from Notebook LM, and I'll be able to connect everything together. So this is all created automatically. Like really, the problem with doing this live is that I'm now thinking of all these things that I want to build. What I need, this is not ironic, I need I need an AI that helps me keep on track, or I need an application that helps me keep on track of all of the ideas and all of the projects that are in progress and where they are in the pipeline, because I'm starting so much. And then I need a ClawdBot to kind of work as a project manager to keep me on track for all of these projects. So it's a ClawdBot managing me rather than me managing an artificial intelligence. It's a shift. I'm going to hop over to some questions and then jump into pillar 4. Could I make a trading bot with this? You could. I wouldn't, but you could. I saw some people were doing that on the showcase. Infrastructure. Let's have a look. There we go. Trading view analysis. Log into trading view. Okay, no, that is just analysis by the looks of it. I saw people were definitely doing this, and some people were saying they're making money. I don't necessarily believe them or think it's a good idea. Who was saying this? There will be a lot of people selling this idea that you can set up a ClawdBot and you give it $100 and you wake up in the morning and you have $250. Be careful. When anything sounds too good, it probably is too good. The people who will be making money are the people making up promises and selling you their system. The same as we've had for trading and investment for decades now, more than decades. Hundreds and hundreds of years, there have always been financial scams. There will be a lot of that in this space, a huge amount in this space, with people setting up crypto bots, which apparently get you a 10x return, but you just need to invest for a low price of $1,500 or whatever. Don't. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Now, if you trade yourself and you have knowledge of trading and you have managed to systematize that in a way that you know works the majority of the time, then yeah, potentially you could build that into a ClawdBot. Again, though, you could probably do that through kind of algorithmic trading anyway, without having to use a ClawdBot. If you have a set of rules which are close enough for an AI to follow, maybe you could do that without ClawdBot anyway. This is not my area, so I won't focus on it. But if you just create a ClawdBot and say, here's my Robinhood account, it's got $1,000 in it, I want $5,000 by the end of the week, it's probably not going to work. Yeah, I mean, if it does, don't tell anyone. So I'd be very wary about people saying that. Tamas is saying I need a project manager bot too. Yeah. The problem is, I've seen this. There was a, let me pull it up. I'm getting a bit distracted, but there was a Harvard report or TechCrunch. The first signs of burnout are coming from people who embrace AI the most. I think it's from Harvard Business Review. Here's the report. So interestingly, they're finding that AI is not reducing the amount people work, it is increasing the amount people working. The reason is the people who have realized, oh my God, I can build anything. Oh my God, I need to move fast. They're working harder than ever. They are burning the candle at both ends because they realize they have a limited period in which they can build and launch a product, a startup, a business, and do very well before the rest of the world works out what the hell is going on, and before we hit artificial general intelligence. So a huge number of people are like, we need to do as much as possible right now. So the people who kind of get AI, paradoxically, they're not working less. They are working a huge amount. And I'm finding the same for me as well. So things, again, it's a side project, but redoing the £4.1 million government UK AI skills website, there's no reason for me to do that. I do not need to do that. I'm doing that as a side quest to help people in the UK get access to training resources. If I had to do that manually, if I had to do all the research, if I had to build the website, if I had to kind of populate the website, build the filters, etc., I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. The fact that I can set up agents that can go off and do that for me means it's like, okay, well, I better do it then. This is going to be really useful for people. Yeah, it's going to take me, I don't know, 10, 20 hours, but it's going to be a valuable resource for the people out there. So I kind of have to do it. Previously, it would have been too much work. It would have taken me months and it would have distracted me from my actual work. Now, because of AI, I am doing it. And this is happening across the board with things like the task manager bot. Previously, the idea of, I should create a task management system to keep me on track for all of these different tasks. I would have either hired a project manager gone out and find a piece of software that could help me, maybe get a virtual assistant to do that kind of stuff. Now it becomes a matter of, oh no, actually I could build something that will proactively chase me and track me. Now that we can build anything, there's very little stopping us. So I'm not surprised that the people who've realized this, that they can create anything from scratch, are burning out, because there's a FOMO, there's a scarcity, and this is not going to last forever, and the realization that if you build something now fast, you can do very, very well in the next couple of years. So everyone is burning the candle at both ends. Okay, I'm going to hop into Pillar 4, the junior developer. So this is a nice simple one. If you are vibe coding already, most of the time when you're sitting down to do, agentic engineering, this is the new word we're using. When you are doing agentic engineering or vibe coding, or let's just say coding, most of the time you are sitting down, you are setting up a task, and then you'll sit and talk back and forth with your tool. So if you're using Claude Code, for example, it's relatively quick, and every couple of minutes you're going to check back in. Maybe you've got multiple agents all running off and doing different things, so you're always conversing with them, you're always working through different tasks. If you're using something like Codex, which is a bit slower but tends to get things right, I think it's fantastic. Maybe you come back every 20 minutes and give it a new task. With ClawdBot, you can basically offload it. So you're going to give it more powers. You're going to give it dangerously skip permissions. You're going to give it its own GitHub repo, its own Vercel or whatever, its own Superbase access, and you're going to give it a wider task, and which will allow it to build a whole project out for you. If you've ever used vibe coding, if you've used Cursor or Claude Code, etc., you know a lot of it is kind of giving it permissions or answering questions or fixing bugs, etc. With ClawdBot, you could potentially do away with all of that. You give it things like greptile in order to check the PRs. So before you push, before you merge, you're getting it to check for bugs, etc. You're getting it to check whether the deployment is successful, and if not, work out what the hell is going on, etc. And then you just step back away from it. Now, obviously, there are much larger risks associated with that. You could, at best, burn through a lot of credits, thousands and thousands of credits very, very quickly. Or at worst, it will create something that is malicious or leak details or be insecure or somehow, leak your API keys to all and sundry. Now, there are ways to work around that. We're not talking about that right now, but you can use better models like Claude Opus 4.6 is recommended by, let me put it up, where is he? Recommended by the creator. It's not on this page because it is less prone to prompt injection, for example. So there are certain things you can do, but you still need to be very, very careful about all of this. That is, again, not something I'm going to talk about on this particular, let me get back to the website, on this particular live, because it's just a big, big issue. And it's a constantly changing, there we go, source code, that's what I'm looking for. Constantly moving target as well. I've totally lost the site. Here we go. So he recommends, while any model is supported, I strongly recommend Anthropic Pro or Max, so the $100 or the $200 a month, plus Opus 4.6, so the best model right now for long context strength and better prompt injection resistance. Now, he strongly recommends Anthropic Pro Max, so hooking up your $100 or your $200 a month account to ClawdBot. Anthropic do not recommend that. In fact, they will potentially block your account for doing that. They would rather you use the API instead, for good reasons, because you get a lot of usage from the $100 or the $200 a month. This is how I'm doing it, but shh, don't tell Anthropic. I'm on the Fire Ant program, so I hope they don't hear. But genuinely, Claude and Anthropic models are the best. We could debate this, but they really are very, very, very good. We heard recently that they're being used by the Meta team as well. So I think it was a few months ago, the XAI Claude accounts were blocked because they were using Claude Code specifically to develop their AI models. And Anthropic came in and was like, no, you can't do that. That's against terms of service. It sounds like the Meta team are also using Claude code as well, which is very funny. When your competitors are using your product, it kind of tells you that it's the best. Okay, so junior developer. This, if you are a developer, you're probably all over this stuff already. And this is where most of the OpenClaw community is focused, because they are tech nerds. They are developers, they are coders. So a lot of the stuff you see is here. This for me is very exciting, but I think for our general purposes, it's stuff like using ClawdBot as an executive assistant, as a researcher, for marketing and operations, etc. That is more useful if you are building businesses on a day-to-day basis. But the developing stuff is obviously where a lot of the effort and the attention is focused. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put all of these kind of resources into the newsletter tomorrow. What I might do, because nobody seems to have done it, is put together a directory. So obviously the OpenClaw site has this. It has the showcase, but there's only, I don't know, 50 or so showcases here. What I might do is put together a directory where I can pull together things like this. Like, here we go. I use it for managing my Minecraft servers for my kids. For example, changing weather and teleporting them to each other. They often get lost in the netherworld. Literally one voice command away from helping them out, even when I'm not at home. So he'll get a message from his kids being like, "Dad, I'm lost in the nether. I can't find my brother." And he can talk to WhatsApp, he can talk to Slack and be like, "Hey, can you teleport my kids back together somewhere safe?" And ClawdBot will relay that to the Minecraft server, work out the codes to teleport them together, the console codes, and then get that done. That's a use that wouldn't occur to you unless this was something that kept happening. So this guy, Nick, he's obviously got his kids. His kids are obviously messaging him while he's at work saying, "Dad, I'm lost in the nether." And now he's got ClawdBot to help them with that. That is such a weird niche example. So I'm thinking about putting together a directory which includes everything like this. So we can put it all together in one place. So you can just browse through it and be like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, I could do that. I could do that with my game server. I could blah, 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 blah." Very, very, very cool. But there is no central repository. So I might go ahead and build that. But in the newsletter tomorrow, I'm going to include this. PowerPoint. It's not a PowerPoint, a Notebook LM, excuse me. It went for a very, very ugly design this time, but that's fine. And then I'll also include things like the Ethan Mollick article that I talked about, where management is the new superpower, being able to delegate, being able to instruct on how you want tasks done. That is really useful as we move into the agentic phase. And then these various other resources as well. And I will also look into building a use case directory. Again, not something that I need to do, but something that would be kind of a cool project. And again, that's because artificial intelligence allows us to build anything, which when you realize is a little bit overwhelming. So all of that's going to be in the newsletter tomorrow. If you go to aiwithkyle.com, click on join the community, there's about 100 playbooks, 8 courses, a circle community, you get the daily newsletter, what else? A bunch of tools, loads of stuff in there, and it's totally free, so you can join there, aiwithkyle.com. The mission is to get 100? No, we can do better than that. 1 million people ready for what is coming, getting them ready for artificial intelligence, because I don't want to see anyone left behind because they think it's too technical or too complicated. So join the newsletter. You get access to all of that, as well as the summary of what we've covered today. Awesome. I'm going to hop over to some questions and then finish up the stream. Claude is top tier, agreed. Only downside is a context limit. Yeah. So you realistically, you cannot be on the $20 a month plan, because if you're using $20 a month and you use Opus 4.6, you're going to be able to get a few commands in, a few different prompts and responses, and then it's like, you're done. You're done for the day, or you're done for the week. That's even worse, which is extremely frustrating, especially when you can't port that chat into a new model. I'm not sure if they've fixed that, but previously it used to be, I'm pretty sure it's the same. Once you've created a chat, you can't switch the model mid-chat. If they did that, it'd be a lot easier to get away with the $20 a month. I wonder if that's why they don't, because they want the people who are on $20 a month to hit the limits and to upgrade to $100 or $200 a month. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I'm not sure if they're that cynical, but if they allowed you to switch to a, an older Sonnet model, or even just a Sonnet, then it would be more usable. But as it is, the $20 a month plan on Claude is very frustrating, because you want the best, and it gives you a little taste of the best, Opus 4.6, and it's like, that's enough for you today. No more. Which, when you're trying to get work done, it's very annoying, extremely annoying, but it is good. I'm still worried about using OpenClaw. Yep, I might set it up on my Raspberry Pi. Yes, I'm not going to talk about the installation specifically today because it's quite a big task, but do not set it up on your main computer. That is the big thing. If you have a desktop computer, if you have a laptop that you use for all of your work, don't install OpenClaw on it. Do not. You can stick it on something like this, a little Raspberry Pi. Yeah, I was about to pick up my Mac Mini. You could buy a Mac Mini. I'm using it right now. You could buy a Mac Mini. That is generally overkill. It will work on something as simple as this, which is $100. Let me open it up. I'll try to open it up. That didn't sound good. This is, I don't know, 40, 50 bucks or so, 100 maybe if you buy a kit. OpenClaw itself doesn't require much. OpenClaw itself is just a gateway. I think it needs 32 megabytes of memory. So nothing, basically. You don't need an NVIDIA top-of-the-range GPU to run it. However, if you also want to run local large language models on the computer, then you need a beefier computer. So this is not going to run an open source language model, obviously. So if you want local LLM connected to your ClawdBot, then yes, you will need a beefier computer. What I'm doing personally is I use something called a VPS. So it is a computer that is sitting in Germany, I think mine is, on a rack, and I'm renting a space on that computer, which allows it to be on 24/7. It's also its own isolated computer, so it's not attached to my files, it's not attached to my logins, etc. So it's safer, and that's where my ClawdBot personally sits. There's a lot of different ways to do it, which is why I'm not going to cover it fully in this particular live. I'll do it in another one for you, because I've installed it on a number of devices now. The actual installation process is not that hard. Here we go. So you are going to open up on whatever device you're using. You're going to open up the terminal and basically copy paste this npm install -g OpenClaw latest. You will need something called Node. So if you put that in initially, it might be like, oh, I don't have Node. Then you are going to install Node. I don't know what the exact command is, but with this, you can go to ChatGPT and say, this is what my terminal is saying. What do I do? And ChatGPT will say, oh, well, you need to update Node, or you need to install Node, and it will give you the command to do that. You do that, then you install this, npm install OpenClaw latest, and then you're going to run this command, OpenClaw onboard install daemon, and that creates, or that will put you into a install process where you tell it how you want to set it up, and that will basically be it. That is it. It's not that difficult. If you don't know what the terminal is, I'd recommend maybe not messing around with OpenClaw. Like if you don't even know where to put this in, and you're like, what the hell is the terminal? Then OpenClaw might not be for you. I would wait until there's a slightly safer, more secure version down the line, because it's just a bit too risky at the moment. So I will do another live where I'll walk you through some installation methods as well. Because I know this can look a bit intimidating, but it's really not that bad. Awesome. I have some old servers not being used. Will that be okay? Yep, that's perfect. If you have an old laptop lying around, perfect. Put it on that, clear it out, and nice fresh install. You can install OpenClaw on it. It only needs 32 megabytes of RAM, so it doesn't require anything powerful to run OpenClaw itself. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi. Hell, you could probably run it on a graphic calculator. You don't need much. It just needs to be able to run Node 22. That's it. So very limited requirements. The only reason you need a beefier system is to run software on that system. So let's say you're using it as a video editing tool. So your OpenClaw will control your video editing system. If you want the video editing system to be on the same computer, which you probably do, then you need a computer that can run the video editing system. So this won't do that. So you need to think about what you're using it for, basically. Do you know other methods to install OpenClaw containers? Yep. You can 100% put it in a virtual machine, put it in a Docker. All of those work perfectly. As long as it is isolated and it's away from your main device and your main file structure. That's what matters. So you either use an old laptop, buy a new computer, probably don't need to, use a VPS, so a server, stick it on Docker, create a virtual machine, use a Raspberry Pi, anything that isolates it and means it's not connected to your main computer, and you'll be fine. Can I install OpenClaw on Windows with Kimmy? Yeah, you can definitely install it on Windows. So you're going to go into the terminal. Here you go, Windows PowerShell. Sorry, not the terminal. And then this is going to be the command. So you copy this into PowerShell, and that will install. You will probably need Node. I don't know what it runs on Windows, but probably Node. So yeah, you'll need, here we go, Node 22. And then just copy this exactly into your Windows PowerShell. That will install it. Again, don't do it on your main computer. And then Kimmy 2.5 local model. Yep, you can set up using, oh my God, what's it called? How do I always get this wrong? I've got it on my computer. What's it? LM Studio. I always forget this. So you can install something like this, and then you can run models in it. What are you looking for? Kimmy 2.5. You will need a fairly beefy computer. That's the only thing. Let's look up. Here's Kimmy. So yeah, you'd come and get Kimmy. From here, you'd install it on something like Model LM Studio or whatever you use, or you can set it up without if you're more technical. And then you will give ClawdBot access to that so it can use the model. Absolutely. Now, in terms of what computer you need, it's going to be more beefy. So this is why when you might need a new computer, you might need something beefier than a Raspberry Pi. Kimmy K2 is not going to run on this. Kimmy K2 system requirements. Let's have a look. So you're going to need 632 gigabytes of VRAM. No, this requires substantial hardware. So it depends if you're using quantized. For a 1.8-bit quantized version, a minimum of 250 gigabytes combined VRAM, while 8 times H200 GPUs are recommended. How much is an H200 at the moment? An H200 at the moment is, can we buy one? 30,000. Here we go. An H200 is, well, you can hire it, but then you're not running it locally, obviously. I think to buy an H200 is about 30,000. Yeah, $30,000 to $40,000. So you need, let's say 30,000. We're doing cheap. Times 8. That would be about $250,000. And you can run the full version of Kimmy K2. If you want to run a quantized version, obviously that requires less, but you're not going to get as much power out of it. But yeah, 8 H200 GPUs if you want to do the full performance, which is yeah, quite a lot. $250,000. This is, I love, so I run local models on my Mac Mini. I think local LLMs are really important. It's really cool being able to set them up. it is to a certain extent a losing game because the models are getting better and better and better and better, and they're going to require, at least for now, more and more powerful hardware. But the cost of our hardware, the cost of our GPUs, the cost of our RAM now is getting more and more and more expensive. So we are going to be able to run less at home for the same amount of money whilst the models get better and better. So I think right now, absolutely, you can run Quen, you can run Kimmy, you can run DeepSeek. A couple of years from now, it's going to become increasingly difficult to rely on open source without spending hundreds of thousands on GPUs. And even then, your GPUs are going to go out of date and the models get better and you're stuck holding, you know, $250,000 worth of GPUs that you can't use anymore. So it feels a bit like a losing game. I think it's fantastic that there are open source models. I think it's fantastic that we can download them, we can use them at home. It's just going to become non-feasible for the majority of individual users. For businesses, absolutely. Or you can rent servers, etc. But don't start buying H200s because it's a lot of money. Unless you have that money and then go nuts, like do what you want. But yeah, it's okay, choice. You say, can I install OpenClaw on a Windows with Kimmy 2.5 local? And then wowzers, that's a lot. Yeah, so you can, but it's going to cost $250,000. Unless you quantize, there are better ways to do it. But what's the ROI? Yeah, so this is a question. If spending $250,000 on getting a local model makes sense for your business, absolutely, go ahead and do it. I would say, though, you can rent H200s on a server. So here we go. I'm just clicking the top one. Oh, no, it's not even going to give me the cost. Genesis Cloud. How much are these? Pricing. Here we go. H200 on demand is about $3 an hour. You can get a node with 8 of them. So you're not having to buy them yourself, but you are renting them. So you'll be able to rent them for hundreds or thousands rather than $250,000, which is a lot of money. But obviously then it's not local. It is sitting on someone's server. So if you wanted it local for security reasons, for GDPR reasons, for privacy reasons, then you've lost that by going to a cloud service. But it's not $250,000. So I like the idea of running local models to run simple tasks rather than playing open tokens for thinking. Yeah, so you can. It just won't be a full non-quantized version of Kimmy K2 because that requires a huge amount of GPUs. But you can use something a lot lighter and you'll be absolutely fine. So the best place to start is somewhere like lmstudio.ai. You can download a nice, easy-to-use application. I think this works on Windows too. And then you can install models and it would tell you like which models will work on your computer, etc. So that's one way to do it. Or Hugging Face has models too. Oh, that's that guide. Here we go. So Hugging Face has all the models here. So Moonshot, Mistral, Quen, and they can all be downloaded from there. And again, you'd look at what would work on your computer and what will work quickly on your computer, because that's the other thing. Not all of them, but most models will work on your computer, but it might take 6 hours to produce a sentence, so not very useful. Chris is saying, Opus 4.6 deep thinking and research is doing amazing work. Is it better than Kimmy K2? So I think what Choice is looking for is the ability to not have to use Anthropic or not have to use a closed source vendor, Anthropic, OpenAI, etc., but instead have a bit more control and have a local model. There are definite appeals to it, but the frontier labs are always going to release the new best model. So even if Kimmy K2 is better, which it isn't really, when Sonnet 5 comes out or when Sonnet Opus 4.7 or Opus 5, etc., it will blow Kimmy out of the water. So again, the frontier labs are always about 6 months ahead of the open source labs. The American labs are generally about 6 months ahead of the Chinese labs as well. That gap is closing. But if you want the best model, it's generally going to be Anthropic. But you're going to have to pay them $100 or $200 a month, and it is closed source. And if you want open source, if you want local, that is just not available with them. Okay, I'm going to finish up this live, at least on YouTube.